get down here, please. Your acceptance letter just came in.
Oh, finally, after all the essays and interviews. Oh, man.
Rejected, huh? Tough luck, kiddo. But on the bright side, Harvard still wants you.
Yeah, forget it. Guess I'll become a YouTuber. Internet, welcome to Food Theory, the show that's like the Ivy League of YouTube channels. Alright, so maybe not Ivy League, but we're a solid safety school, and best of all, we have a 100% acceptance rate. The only step in the application process, hitting the subscribe button. Right now, 56% of you aren't subscribed, so we'd like to boost those application numbers. To join Honor Roll, all you need to do is turn on notifications, and boy, will you be thankful that you enrolled into the channel today, because I'm gonna make you rich. And it all boils down to fast food chicken. See, back in November of 2020, I did a video all about McDonald's, exposing the fact that it's not a fast food company, but instead takes most of its money in via real estate, which seems odd when you consider what those golden arches are best known for. The basic gist of it all is that when someone applies to open a McRestaurant, McDonald's gets to choose the location. They will then ensure that they own the land and building that the restaurant is going into. Why would they care about that? Well, it means that for every new restaurant that gets opened, McDonald's gets to collect a franchise fee of around $45,000, as well as a cut of all food sales made, which are the sorts of things that you'd expect out of a deal like this. But it also means that they collect rent from their franchisees, and that is where the real money starts to roll in. It's an arrangement that ultimately works out pretty well for both parties. McDonald's earns rent and a cut of food sales, and the franchisee walks away with a yearly salary around 5% of what they sell per year. This results in about $150,000 provided they sell $3 million in gross sales. That's the rough average per year of Mickey D sales here in the US. Not too shabby, right? This idea of a fast food brand essentially leasing out their restaurants, known as the Sonneborn model, has been wildly successful. So successful, in fact, that most fast food chains in the US use it, but some are apparently more difficult to get access to than others. Case in point, Chick-Fil-A. According to online reports, getting to be the owner of one of these restaurants is simultaneously easier and harder than every single one of these other ones combined. In fact, as the story goes, you have a better chance of getting accepted into a prestigious college like Harvard than you do of owning a Chick-Fil-A, but that's just the story, right? It can't be true. So you know what? I wanted to look into the statistics. Is becoming a restaurant franchisee a better path than going to college? Is slinging sandwiches gonna make you rich? Well, I watched hours of interviews and read the 403-page franchise disclosure document to find out exactly that. And, well, consider today your Chicken Sciences 101 credit. What makes Chick-fil-A so different from everyone else? Can passing out poultry pack your pockets? Those, my friends, are questions that are absolutely going to be on the final exam. And no, you cannot take this class as pass-fail. Thank you. First, let's take a look at what it means to be a fast food franchisee. As I mentioned before, the first step is paying the franchise fee, a one-time cost that varies wildly from chain to chain. McDonald's is on the higher end of this, requiring you to pay $45,000, while places like Subway are much lower, clocking in at $15K. Chick-fil-A, meanwhile, is the lowest of anyone, with a rock-bottom fee of only $10,000. And even that is an overstatement because half of it basically functions as a security deposit. If you treat your restaurant nice, you get that $5K refunded to you when you're done with the company. So off the bat, things are looking pretty nice for Chick-fil-A. But the real challenge to becoming a franchise owner is to even start the process. These companies will look into your personal net worth to see whether you can be trusted with their brand. They aren't just gonna let anyone own those golden arches. They have a reputation to uphold. They need to ensure that you can be trusted to keep that ice cream machine broken at all costs. Subway, once again, is on the cheaper end of the spectrum, only requiring a net worth of $80,000. McDonald's requires a net worth of $500,000. Wendy's is actually crazy high, requiring a $5 million net worth, with $2 million of that being in what they call liquid assets, basically assets that can be converted to cash in a short amount of time. That is a huge barrier to entry. If getting to own a Chick-fil-A is harder than getting into Harvard, then the net worth requirement has to be crazy for this thing, right? Well, to start off operating a Chick-fil-A, you have to have a net worth of, literally doesn't matter, there's no requirement. So the fee's the lowest and there's no net worth requirement, so what makes it so hard to get a Chick-fil-A? I mean, Chick-fil-A is also the highest grossing of any of these franchises. QSR in the food industry stand for Quick Service Restaurant, and the magazine QSR, which reports on the industry, tends to track the performance of the 50 largest QSR chains. According to their data, an average Chick-fil-A restaurant crushes it in sales, sales, raking in a staggering $5 million per year. No one even comes close to that number. McDonald's comes in at $3 million, Starbucks at 1.2, Taco Bell at 1.6, and higher sales usually mean higher earnings for the owner of the franchise. So what's the big catch with Chick-fil-A? There has got to be some sort of trick here, right? Well, the problem isn't actually money, it's interviews. You can't just walk in with $10,000 and be given a restaurant. Instead, you have to apply, and this process can take anywhere from 12 to 24 months. And that's not even just one person had a bad experience numbers. That is what Chick-fil-A themselves openly admit in their application video, though it can go shorter, as this operator admits in Utah.
I'd gone through about 5 rounds of interviews, so that was about an 8-month process.
How can a process deciding if you're good enough to run a restaurant take that long? Well, when you expect your applicants to write 12 essays in order to qualify, suddenly the timing starts to make a little sense. You also have to submit your high school transcripts. In short, the comparison to getting into college is much more applicable than you might initially think. But is it truly as hard as Harvard? Well, I ran the numbers. Harvard University in Massachusetts is currently rated as the second best college in the US. The application process only takes a few months, much shorter compared to Chick-fil-A. It requires you to write 4 essays as opposed to 12. And you have to attend 1 or 2 interviews compared to 5 or more. But of course, just because you're doing less work, it doesn't make Harvard any easier to get into, and you'd be right about that. In 2021, just over 40,000 students applied to Harvard, and of those, only 2,056 were accepted, which gives them an acceptance rate of 5.14%. Pretty low odds. So let's compare that to Chick-fil-A. I've seen stats saying that anywhere between 20,000 and 60,000 people express interest in becoming a franchisee every year. And of those, do you want to guess how many people actually make the cut? 80. Last year, it appears to have been just over 100. That is an acceptance rate between 0.1 and 0.5%. Not 1%, 0.1. 10 times lower than Harvard's acceptance rate. Heck, that is lower than your chance of becoming a Secret Service agent at 1%. Even lower than becoming an employee at Google at 0.23%. It is an insane statistic. But surely a Harvard degree is gonna get you more money, right? Nah, probably not. According to the statistics that I found, graduates from Harvard on average earn $100,000 per year 6 years after they leave the school. They're up to about $150,000 per year after 10. Again, compare that to what we talked about earlier when it comes to McDonald's. Owning a single average performing franchise will net you about $150,000 per year, but that's just McDonald's. Like I mentioned, Chick-fil-A restaurants tend to be much higher earning, with an average restaurant last year selling $5 million per store. Assuming you take home 5% of your gross revenue, that amounts to $250,000 per year as your salary. And again, that's off of an initial one-time $10,000 investment. Yearly tuition at Harvard, meanwhile, is a $54,000 per year investment. So before you're even able to get out into that job market, you're already in the whole $216K. So getting into Chick-fil-A is not only harder, but it's also cheaper and likely more profitable than getting into Harvard. That said, I'd be very irresponsible if I didn't call out some stipulations here. Chick-fil-A does the franchise thing very differently from the rest of the service industry. Remember how everyone else requires you to have a massive net worth to get started? Well, that's because you, as the franchisee, are expected to buy everything to get your restaurant off the ground. All the equipment, materials, whatever, it's all on you. Chick-fil-A, meanwhile, takes care of all of that, so you don't need to be sitting on a Scrooge McDuckian pile of wealth to get started. And while that certainly sounds generous in theory, in food theory, it means that Chick-fil-A actually owns everything. You don't own a darn thing in that restaurant. If you decide to pack up shop, it'll all go back to Chick-fil-A and you walk away with nothing. You can't even pass it on to your family. You aren't really an owner, hence why the job title here is operator. Meanwhile, if you're hoping to coast, just buy a franchise to hire someone else to run the whole thing. Nope, not allowed. Chick-fil-A expects franchisees to be very hands-on with their restaurant and refuses to let operators have any other business ventures. I guess they'd frown on me making YouTube videos about them while I also ran one of their locations. And you do have to be hands-on. Reading everything that I could about franchising restaurants, everyone seems to agree on that, regardless of the franchise you're talking about. If you're the owner, you are constantly supervising every element of the business. There is no rest when employees are going in and out of this thing like a revolving door. So you're working hard for all the money you're earning. The upside for owners of places like McDonald's is that in success, most owners are able to operate multiple locations, which allows them to generate some fat stacks. $150,000 from a single restaurant per year? Yeah, it's great. But $150K per year from 7 restaurants? Oh, now you're talking. However, unlike other fast food franchises, you can't do that that at Chick-fil-A. You have to earn your way up to merit 2, and at max, maybe 3 Chick-fil-A locations. Why are they so different? Because they don't want franchisees to just be people with lots of money sitting around in an office. They want people that are hands-on. If you become a franchisee, you are signing yourself up for a 6-day-a-week position running the restaurant. And when you think about the Chick-fil-A model relative to the other models of QSRs that you visit, it actually makes sense. I mean, I can only speak anecdotally, but in general, I eat a lot of fast food. And I notice when things in the restaurant aren't really run well. Chick-fil-A tends to get fewer orders wrong, run more efficiently, and have consistent service. At least at all the places that I visit here in North Carolina and California. This is because the franchise operators are there all the time, breathing down their employees' necks, micromanaging, checking in everything. Good for consumers like me, no doubt. But I also imagine it's probably a lot more stressful to be an employee in that sort of environment. That's in contrast to most of the McDonald's locations that I visit, whose employees occasionally saunter over to the cash register and where there's a literal 25% accuracy on my order. The model certainly isn't the best for me as the consumer, but it's certainly great for the franchise owner who's sitting on a mountain of cash somewhere from their 10 franchises. It also encourages the McDonald's brand to spread everywhere, being as wide as it possibly can be because everyone wants to open one, and they can open dozens. My point in all of this is that there's so much that we don't see under the surface of the restaurants that we go to every day, or just me going to every day. It's probably just me, right? The question is, if you can own a QSR restaurant, should you, or are you better off going to Harvard? Well, in an interesting twist, the answer is yeah, own the restaurant. You start making money as a franchise owner immediately, rather than waiting 4 years and hoping to get an entry-level job to start chipping away at your debt. And even at 6 years out of college, when your experience trumps your education anyway, franchise owners are still likely making a higher average salary than the average Harvard graduate. Again, with less debt and now with an incredibly substantial resume item, owning and running their own business. After 4 years of being a franchise owner, you can go on to run other types of restaurants. You can open up more of your current restaurant. You can go into high-end management positions at companies or start your own brand new business with your profits. After 4 years at Harvard, you can finally move out of your 160 square foot dorm, grab as much out of your parents' fridge in Connecticut as you can get away with, and line up for an entry-level job somewhere. Somehow, bizarrely, this doesn't even seem to be a close race. Even as a guy who went to a fancy pants college, I am now thinking that I should have picked up a Subway instead. At the end of the day, college tends to teach concepts in theory, and you know I love me some theories, but being a franchise owner teaches concepts by experience, which means that you're not just earning a living, you're learning a living, which is pretty much the ideal. But hey, maybe all this talk about fast food chains has made you hungry, or maybe you're like me and trying to be healthier by cutting down on the amount of fast food that you're eating every week. Thankfully, we were once again reached out to by Noom to sponsor today's episode. As you might imagine, I have to eat a lot of food to do research for these episodes, but I've also been trying really hard to get healthy in my everyday life. Luckily, Noom has been there for me every step along the way when it comes to understanding my eating habits. It may seem like I just wanted another bite of that gloriously greasy breaded chicken, but there were really much deeper reasons behind my choices. And thanks to Noom's support groups and use of cognitive behavioral therapy, I've been able to address and work towards a healthier lifestyle. Thanks to Noom, I realize now that I use food as a crutch when I'm sad, when I'm tired, when I don't have an answer to a question, or when I'm looking to procrastinate. Thanks to that knowledge, since the beginning of the year, I've been able to lose 3 pounds, helping me get that much closer to my personal weight loss goals. And I have Noom to thank for helping me set those achievable goals and keeping to the necessary steps. Plus, thanks to their delicious recipes, I have solid, healthy alternatives to fast food, which, you know, is really valuable. So if you want to join me in kicking the fast food habit, head on over to the description and click the link noom.com/foodtheory to get your free 30-second quiz. Noom will then process your quiz using science and psychology to create your perfect health plan, one that's made specifically for you and your personal journey. Like I said, I've been on my journey for a couple months now. It has been great. I have seen results, and I think you will too. Once again, click the link down in the description below, noom.com/foodtheory, to take your free 30-second quiz to start the journey to a healthier you. And as always, friends, remember, it's all just a theory. A food theory. Bon appetit.